so much. And thank you so much for picking actually my favorite quote and the theme of what I want to speak about today. I did not plan this. It's a real honor for me to be here. And I want to thank all of you who are making Yale what it is and who made it what it is through the years for what you've done. I'm deeply grateful to Yale for what they've done for my two daughters, the second of whom is still a junior at Davenport. And the entire family went up because she gave her first tour at the Yale Museum the other day. The entire Greek village was there to support her. And of course, my daughters laugh at me because I find every excuse to go to New Haven. Basically, they invite me to speak to 3 students in a back room. I will go there. None of us in our family has a very good sense of geography, but the first year Christina was at Yale, I would say to her, I'm on my way to speak at Williams College, and it's on the way. New Haven is on the way. I would stop and see you at Starbucks for a coffee. So New Haven became on the way to everywhere. For those of you who have not heard me before, this accent is for real. I say that because it's been the bane of my existence, and I recently joked during a speech that I was really born in Fresno and I had cultivated this accent. And being an ethnic minority, which is so popular everywhere except in Arizona. And I got 27 emails and letters from people asking me, how exactly did you go about changing your accent? A sense of the fallibility among the American electorate. I only actually relaxed about my accent when I moved to New York from London and met Henry Kissinger. I actually happened to be in New Haven last 2 weeks ago when we were there, and Anna Maria Chavez was there. Hi, Anna. And he said to me, don't worry about your accent, he said. You can never underestimate in American public life the advantages of complete and total incomprehensibility. I also want to say how lucky Yale is to have Peter as its next president. Not just because of all the obvious things, and not just because he's the only speaker who dances while he speaks. But also because his pioneering work in the field of emotional intelligence is now more important than ever. And we're increasingly recognizing that what our world needs is more emotional intelligence, and more empathy and more wisdom. And to have somebody at the helm of Yale who is a pioneer in this field is going to be incredibly important in the 40 years ahead, I say, Peter, not 20. So, I want to make 3 main points and then open it up for questions. We have to finish by 2:15, but I want to leave a little room for your questions. So the first thing is that as we look around us everywhere, we recognize that the world has become unmanageable. There is something definitely wrong. And I'm using the term that AA uses, when something is not working and we need a fundamental change. Here in Washington, it's obvious. Nothing really can happen. Not even background checks in gun legislation. Something obvious, something that 90% of Americans agree with, something that is not about right or left, cannot get through. We look at Wall Street and all that has happened with the financial crisis and beyond. And when we look at all that, not to mention, of course, the recent tragedy in Boston, what is missing is not intelligence, what is missing is not IQ, what is missing is wisdom. We have an enormous amount of leaders with very high IQs in media, in business, in politics, making terrible decisions. And how can we reactivate that wisdom in our leaders, in all of us? That's where I think the second women's revolution that Eve talked about comes in. Because clearly, and some of you saw the Makers documentary last night, And the first women's revolution was incredibly important. It was really an ongoing battle. It's an incomplete project. The work is not done of making sure that women can participate fully in any aspect of our work. But the current revolution that women have to lead is the revolution to change the world into which women are leaning into, to use Sheryl Sandberg's term. I love Sheryl's book. I love the idea of leaning in. I love not letting our own voices of doubt stop us from fulfilling our dreams. I call it the obnoxious roommate living in your head. That voice that we all have. Men have it too, but men, Peter, can shut it up much faster and go watch a hockey game. But women have to wrestle it into the ground. So not listening to these voices of doubt that put us down, all that is incredibly important. But at the same time, women need to learn to lean back in order to unplug, recharge, renew ourselves, and lean in again. And they need to teach men to do that too, because the numbers don't look good. Right now, we see that among successful career women, there is a 30% higher incidence of heart disease and a 50% higher incidence of diabetes. We are seeing incredible numbers. Women are paying a much higher price for stress than men are. And men have paid a pretty high price for stress. Just look around at the men and women in their 50s having heart attacks, high blood pressure. Look at our healthcare costs. 75% of our healthcare costs are for preventable chronic diseases. So even if we didn't have a fiscal crisis, this is not sustainable. So there is a kind of perfect storm happening. You know, the terrible decisions by sleep-deprived, exhausted leaders. Just, honestly, just read the story of how they came up with the Cyprus bailout. I don't know why all these international decisions have to be made in the middle of the night. It's just the way men have kind of created this world. The idea that you have to burn out, you have to work 24/7 in order to prove that you are successful and really committed. I know, because ever since Arianna Huffington Post, I've been in more corporate culture, and I'm hearing this language which we have to change. You know, board meetings where people are saying, we're killing it, we're crushing the opposition. Really? You know, can't we use any more emotionally intelligent terms? So women need to also recalibrate the language that we are using to identify success, and we need to change fundamentally the metrics of success. And that's the second point that I want to focus on. In fact, Mika Brzezinski and I are co-hosting a women's conference in June in New York, for anyone who wants to come, and we are calling it Redefining Success, the third metric. The first two metrics are money and power, but clearly that's not enough. If we look at our lives, that's not how we define our success. You know, there is a sense of well-being, wisdom, the ability to make a difference in the lives of others. All these are elements of what we consider a successful life. Yet the way the world calibrates success, what our children unconsciously absorb every day is that money and power are the definitions of success. And that's why when we look at the state of women, we cannot just define success among women simply by seeing how many women CEOs are there, or how many women are running things, because I may not want to be a CEO. Actually, I don't. You know, I don't want. That's not what I want. That's not what makes me fulfilled. So how about honoring whatever it is that for each woman is her definition of success? I was recently speaking to the employees of Etsy.com. That provides a platform for, it started with women, now a lot of men as well, who want to use their hobbies originally, their ability to do crafts, to produce things, to make a living by selling what they produce online. And a lot of the women said to me, you know, I didn't want just to make a living, I wanted to make a life. And we look around now with 25 million people unemployed or underemployed, with a lot of our kids graduating even from the best colleges and not being able to get good jobs. We look at all that and say, the world that our kids are graduating into is going to be very different. Many of them will have to create their own jobs, create their own startups, find what it is that they love, and actually make it happen. And it may not involve being a CEO. It may not involve climbing up a ladder. Again, as Sheryl Sandberg said in her book, it's not really about a ladder, it's a jungle gym. Sometimes you may make a lateral move and it may be exactly what you want. So redefining success is absolutely key. And what is fascinating to me is that there is now a convergence between what is best for human beings and what is best for corporations. And 25% of American corporations are now integrating some form of meditation, yoga, distressing into what they're doing. And I don't mean just Google and Silicon Valley startups. I was recently at General Mills in the middle of the country, an iconic American company. And I was amazed to go walk through rooms and see executives coming out of rooms after a yoga session or a meditation session, clearly in pursuit of greater emotional intelligence. And I was in Davos this year, and for the first time in Davos, they had all these sessions around how to be a better leader, and they involved meditation. Mark Williams, the clinical psychologist from Oxford, was there, actually taking 150 Davos CEOs through a meditation session. It was quite surreal. Not to mention the Buddhist monk Mathieu Ricard walking around the Davos halls in his orange robes. So something is changing. The recognition that we need to find ways to tap into our own wisdom. And as we're living in a hyper-connected world, and I say that as somebody running an internet company, I'm acutely aware of the desperate need to learn to disconnect from that world. And at the Huffington Post, I've done that, for example, by establishing 2 nap rooms in the middle of our newsroom. When over 2 years ago we started the nap rooms, a lot of my journalists would say, who is ever going to walk into a nap room in the middle of the day? Well, now they're fully booked all the time. We have to start a 3rd room. And the other day I was going by one of the nap rooms and I saw 2 people coming out of it, and I thought, whatever, you know. Whatever helps you distress. Just don't tell HR. Weekly yoga classes, weekly meditation classes, weekly breathing exercises classes, and at CES in Las Vegas at the electronics show in January, we launched an app which I mentioned as a flight of fancy 2 years ago during a speech, and then I looked around our office and I said, we have these amazing engineers here, why don't we make this app happen? And we did, and the app, which is free, you can download it from the App Store, is called GPS for the Soul. And you basically put your finger on your camera sensor, and it gives you a proxy for stress, your heart rate variability, and then it gives you the opportunity to create a guide of the things that help you course correct and get back into that place of peace and harmony and balance in yourself. Some experts have created guides which are pre-packaged in the app, so you can download their guides, including mine, which, as you see, has a lot of pictures of my children when they were young and unproblematic. And the GPS for the soul is really based on 2 fundamental truths. One, that we all have this place of harmony, strength, and peace inside us. Whatever religion you follow or whatever philosophy you believe in, they all talk about that. The kingdom of heaven is within. And my fellow compatriot Greek Archimedes talked about, give me a place to stand and I shall move the world. That is that place. That is the place when we have it, we know it, we feel strong, invincible, we feel we can do anything. And the second truth is that most of the time we don't live our lives from that place. That's the truth for all of us. So the GPS for the soul is really connected to redefining success. It's really about how can we get back to that place again and again and again, multiple times a day, knowing that we're going to fall out of it. knowing that stress is going to be part of our lives. We're not going to eliminate stress. The question is, can we course correct fast enough so that it doesn't become toxic? Because that's really when it becomes disease. So you get alerts that tell you to check in. It takes a minute. And the thing that I'm learning now, as I'm trying to practice these things more in my life, is that when we don't follow that inner place of balance and harmony and peace, we are not as effective. And now, because I talk about it a lot and because we have a lot of editorial initiatives around it, I feel as though whenever I don't practice what I'm preaching, it boomerangs very fast. So last Wednesday, I was getting ready to leave for Colombia, where I went for a day and a half so that I could fly back and be here. And so I was rushing to get everything done in the office. And in the meantime, I'm doing a new apartment in New York, so they had sent me some knives and things to choose among. We have to do that too. I don't have a husband to do that. So I was opening these knives, and I cut my thumb really badly. And it was almost like a message. I was rushing, thinking I was being super productive and effective, and I ended up in the emergency room having to have stitches on my thumb. So that's another kind of quick reminder. My first big reminder was in 2007 when I fainted from exhaustion. It was while I was taking Christina through colleges. And it was also at the height of building the Huffington Post. So our agreement was that I would not look at my BlackBerry while we were together, which seemed a very fair deal to strike. So we would actually check into whatever college or hotel we were at, and she would go to sleep and I would start working. So I got back home. I was at my desk. I stood up to get a sweater because I was cold. I fainted, hit my head on my desk, broke my cheekbone, 5 stitches in my right eye. And that really started me on this journey of rediscovering sleep and rediscovering that need to redefine stress and success. And sleep has become an obsession for us. We have a dedicated sleep section on the Huffington Post. I'm proud to say that I've joined the Harvard School of Medicine Sleep Division. Did you know there was such a thing? And so we have the latest statistics and data on sleep. And again, that's something women have to change, because men have defined sleep deprivation with virility. Men really brag. Just remember, watch and listen to men talk. They brag about how little sleep they get. I was recently having dinner with a guy who bragged that I only got 4 hours sleep the night before. And I thought to myself, I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, you know what, if you'd gotten 5, this dinner would have been a lot more interesting. There's a group of lawyers here in this room, so I want to quote what Anne-Marie Slaughter wrote. She said that we have this culture we're living in of time macho, which Anne-Marie describes as a relentless competition to work harder, stay later, pull more all-nighters, travel around the world, and build the extra hours that the international date line affords you. And we pay a heavy price. I wrote a column recently about Hillary Clinton. I said, as well as everything she's done in her life and everything she may do, I hope that she's going to be a model for women to show that you can take some time off. You can be what she called untired. That's the word. Whenever anyone asked her what she wanted to do, she said, I want to be able to sleep in. I want to become untired. We all identify with that. So I hope she can trust herself and the world enough to do that and to return to whatever she wanted to do, run for president, change the world, anything, with renewed vigor and that sense of that we all have when we've been rested, when we've been renewed, as opposed to the alternative sense that we've all had of dragging ourselves through a day and dragging ourselves through what we need to do. So I just feel that it's going to take work, and it's going to take women leading that way to be able to change how we define success and how we achieve whatever it is that we want to do. And the media have a big role to play here. Because if there is one problem with the media, it is that we tend to focus almost exclusively on what is not working, on what is dysfunctional, and we need to do a better job at putting the spotlight on what is working. And that's why at the Huffington Post we now have 18 lifestyle sections, including one on weddings and one on divorce. In fact, we launched that divorce section before our wedding section because Nora Ephron, who was an editor at large at HuffPost, came to me one morning and said, you know what, we must launch a divorce section because marriage comes and goes, but divorce is forever. And the section actually focuses a lot on co-parenting and on how to be divorced with less stress. That is the theme of all the sections. We are calling them less stress, more living. So whatever it is that you are doing, how can we do it with less stress? I mean, I personally do not remember my wedding day because I was so stressed out. So how can we all change what we bring, what part of ourselves we bring into whatever we are doing? And if those of us in the media do a better job at that, we'll have a greater opportunity to scale what we're doing, to replicate the good things. And there is a lot of good stuff happening. There is a kind of perfect storm at the moment of dangers, including what's happening with our healthcare costs, and new ways of doing things, including corporate America recognizing that it's in the interest of the bottom line to make it easier for their employees to de-stress, to find more balance and harmony in their lives, and to bring that sense of renewal into whatever it is they're doing. All that we need is a critical mass. Now, critical mass is a scientific term, and for me it is sort of the scientific equivalent of grace, which is a spiritual term. It means that we are not going to do everything ourselves. It means we're all going to do our part, and then somehow grace comes. A critical mass is reached, and the change happens. And it may appear often miraculous, but the fact that now, through the internet, new ways of doing things can be spread out very fast is an incredible opportunity to actually scale these new ways of living, these new ways of defining success, and getting more connected with that third metric and communicating it to ourselves, those around us, our children, and do it all with more balance, more gratitude, and yes, more sleep. Thank you.